great to have you here. And this is just such a exciting topic for me. And I'll tell you why it's such an exciting topic for me, because a lot of people teach psychological resources as something that you do at the beginning. It's a sort of quick thing you do. A lot of courses, people have done a lot on psychological resources, but just because trainers and organizations think that that everybody knows about psychological resources, I don't think they do. And there are much deeper levels to thinking about psychological resources than most training programs really talk about. So that's what I want to really talk to you about today. So I'm gonna do a presentation, and then I'll take you on a meditation, and then we'll do a debrief in small groups after the meditation. And I intend to take you through this really quite major, massive meditation process designed to help us boost our psychological resources. That's the outcome today. That's the title of the workshop today. But first, let me just share some of my thoughts on the subject. And so, what are inner resources? In case you don't know, a psychological resource empowers you, or that's a bad sentence. It's something that empowers you. I can't actually read because I've got so much covering my screen, that you see, hear, and feel, and smell or taste internally. So it could be anything that you see, hear, feel, smell, and or taste. So smell might be pinewood forests, or the smell of a chapel, or the sea, or the ocean. Taste could be, the salt in your mouth, or whatever it is that you might taste that would be useful, inspiring for you. Psychological resources. The great thing about psychological resources is that they're accessible 24 hours a day, 360 days a year. And what I consider to be a really significant thing to do in our lives is to learn to access them whenever we want them, whenever we need them. That's the first step, to be able to move from a state of disempowered state to an empowered state by accessing psychological resources reasonably quickly, depending on how disempowered or how upset you are at the time. And of course, there's a lot more to this. There are certain things like grief that need their time. But just in general, with the ups and downs of everyday life, but to be able to find our inner resources on demand. And then with practice, I think this is really a super important part of it. You want to get to the stage where, when you are in difficulty, when something difficult is going on, the resources come spontaneously. And that will be a part of what we do today. We want to invite the resources to come spontaneously when your unconscious mind thinks, wow, I think you need a bit of help. I'm going to bring out the cavalry and support you and help you out. And then also, of course, when you are most in need of, being in the flow, in being in your high performance state, being at your best. And it's really a special thing that when you've practiced this stuff enough, you'll just find that in those situations, you're confident that you'll take a deep breath and be in your high performance state. And what that takes is practice. That's all it takes. And I consider practicing, meeting with, having rendezvous with our psychological resources, my psychological resources, on a daily basis, and having a practice around building my connection to those resources is just really a super important thing in my life. And I'm going to come back to the slides in a minute or two, but I just want to come back to you all, because I just want you to think of this. So your view of your life to date is based mainly on your memory of what has happened. And memory is selective. You have selected to remember some things more than other things. And what humans do is, if something has a very strong emotion attached to it, we're more likely to remember it. And unfortunately, the worst and most difficult experiences of our lives often have very strong emotions attached to them. So our life story can sometimes, for most people, overemphasize, over-exaggerate the difficult moments and underplay the times when things were just going well. You know, maybe you remember well the very big high performance moments because there was an emotional charge during or after. But there are lots and lots and lots of moments when you're doing really well, which may not be highlighted in the movie of your personal history, in your inner movie. So one of the things from, you know, NLP and Richard Bandler in particular, is just this idea that, that why not invite our unconscious minds to low light the difficult experiences of our lives and highlight all the memories where things were going pretty well or really great. Why not pay attention more to the moments that things were going well, we were communicating well, we were successful, or we were learning, we were discovering, we were exploring, we were relating? Why not pay more attention to those moments? Because guess what? They're a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you think about those moments, it fires up those parts of your brain, those parts of your nervous system associated with those patterns. When you visualize, hear, and feel those memories, it fires up those parts of your brain that are associated with acting and behaving that way. And if your brains are fired up in that way, then you're more likely to respond to the situations around you in that way. I mean, one of the really famous examples of this is, you know, the Americans deal with their war veterans very differently to the British people. But there was a Vietnam vet who'd been, I can't even think of his name now, but he'd been in some horrible prison where he was submerged half underwater for years in a sort of ditch with a bamboo fence around him. And when they finally managed to exchange him for prisoners and brought him back to America, they did the big parade at the Air Force Base, and they welcomed him home as a hero. And I can't remember where they were driving him to, but I think the Air Force or the military, some part of the military, were driving him somewhere. And as they passed a golf course, he said, "Oh God, let's stop. I haven't been on a golf. I've been thinking about golf courses all these years." And, you know, so they went into the golf club. Now in Britain, some random people turned up at a posh golf club. They'd be probably shown quietly the door. But in America, the fact that he was a vet and a hero, he was welcomed in immediately. And they got him some golf clubs, and he went out and he was just playing perfect golf. And they said, "Well, how come, you know, you've been in, you know, in this basically a concentration camp, a prison camp all these years. How come you're playing such great golf?" And he said, "Because in my mind's eye, I was rehearsing this every day." He was evoking those neural pathways every day. He was playing golf in his mind's eye. Now, of course, it's probably more fun to play golf on a golf course than it is just in your mind's eye. But I think that demonstrates really well how if you use your memory to evoke psychological resources, they actually become available to you. So that's really, you know, the big message, which is, and it's, you know, I talk about this for myself. I had a really difficult childhood. I felt lonely. I felt like an outsider. I felt like a pariah. I didn't feel loved. I was competing with my twin brother for love. I did badly at school as a consequence of it. Lots of bad stuff in my childhood. But if I run my life based on those memories, I'm going to have a pretty lousy life. You know, if I let those self-fulfilling prophecies run my life, that is not going to be a great life. So over the years, I've started to remember and notice and breathe in, you know, anytime someone's kind to me, anytime someone's loving, anytime someone's compassionate, and then to think back to those people. You know, there were a couple of school teachers who were kind and saw the best in me and brought the best out of me. There were times when my parents were great. There were times when relatives were great. There were great moments. I could start just to remember those more. It's not that I want to delete the other memories. It's just that I want to remember those ones more strongly and create my life around those positive memories. So coming back to the slides for a moment, I'll take some questions in a minute. So here's, some of you will know this comes from creative mind, but historically, psychology is about the study of the psyche of the individual. Psychology and, what's happening in the world, and, the impending mass extinction. We know that just focusing on ourselves and our own lives is not sustainable as approach for humanity. But nevertheless, let's focus on the positive aspects of psychology to date. And there's a lot of stuff around remembering, remembering everyone who loved you, everyone who believed in you, remembering all the positive experiences that you've had in your life to date. So there's a lot of psychological resources that come from our own lives. There are also psychological resources, and also actually disempowerments, but also resources that come from our ancestors. And really, in previous workshops, I've had us look at our ancestors, and sometimes people say, oh my God, I've climbed out of some very difficult circumstances that my ancestors had. I really don't want to look back. But if you're lucky, there may be some powerful people in your ancestors who, when you think of them, when you talk to them, when you chat to them in your mind's eye, when you take advice from them, it can be healthy. There may be some people in your society or culture, the community of mind, that you can call on as resources. And also, of course, in the in the world community. I've said this many times before, but people like Nelson Mandela are very inspiring to me. If I need dogged persistence on something and to stick with my vision, I stay with Nelson Mandela. If I want the resource of being kind and looking for positive intention when talking to people who really hurt me, I can think of Nelson Mandela, or Martin Luther King for a powerful vision of love. So there are people who I've never met in the community of mind, Gregory Bateson, Mary Catherine Bateson, his daughter. There are many people in the community mind that I can call on, the collective mind, who can be inner resources for me. The way I like to think about this, the way that I invite people to think about this, is that you have a circle of supporters around you. You can begin to create a circle of supporters. You see, perhaps start with a semicircle in front of you of people who've believed in you, who've loved you, who've cared about you. And they can be people that you know really well, friends, or they can be people that you don't know very well, such as school teachers or your first boss or someone who helped you once, or a carer or someone from the past. They can be people that you're still in contact with, or people that you've lost contact with. And also, I think it's really important that one of my inner resources, who's someone who really believed in me, is someone who I now have a difficult relationship with, for various reasons I won't go into. But I can just take an edited highlight, a little video clip of a time when she was really believing in me. And that is a powerful resource. Every relationship has ups and downs. You can pick the best moments when they were at their best and when you were at their best. And you can take that edited highlight. When I say edited highlight, it's like in a soccer game, a lot of the game may be really boring, but when they score the goal, first they play the shot of the goal just, from the main camera, then they play it in slow motion, then they play it from the camera behind the goal, then they do it from another angle. They may even start putting arrows and showing where people were as the ball was passed around the pitch. So an edited highlight is when you take the memory and you really just extract the best bit so that you can, see that clip in your mind's eye, feel the feelings associated with it, hear the voice of the other person, just in a few seconds. And so then around me, I have a collection to start with at this level of people who I've either met or not met, who are in my life now or who were in my life in the past, people who I was intimate with or people who I hardly knew, but all of whom, when I see them, when I hear them speaking to me, when I feel the feeling of it, it's a resource. And so that's, you find those both within your own individual life, but also if you think about the life of humanity, the life of your culture, the life of society. And of course, collective mind can really include a lot of diversity in it, both in terms of gender and race and culture. And of course, I could think back to the ancient Greeks, for example, for a resource. So time, of course, in collective mind allows me to go backwards and forwards. And of course, storybooks. I was working with somebody yesterday and their resource was someone called Modesty Blaze from a cartoon. I think she was like a sort of female superhero from a period of time ago. And then also someone else who was really pretty nasty. I'm not even going to mention his name, but anyway, they were both, one was from a story, from a cartoon, and the other was from a film. And so that's the collective mind. And we're going to go into each of these in more detail when I lead you through the meditation. And then, of course, there's nature. I'm going out into nature every day at the moment because the actual practical, the smell, the feeling, the sight of the sky and the trees and the green have an impact on my physiology and on my neurology. And actually they can measure different types of forests, have different impacts on us. They can actually measure the calming effect of different types of forest on us. And all of us, perhaps on holiday, have had really touching, empowering, special moments in nature. I say on holiday because very often when we're very relaxed, we can slow down sufficiently to really feel the natural world around us. And so just remembering those moments in the natural world, whether it's with an animal or in a landscape or the ocean or the mountains, or looking at lying in the grass and looking at the sky on a summer's day, any of those moments can be taken to mind. One of the first NLP courses I did well, not the first, but maybe the second or third, I did in Santa Cruz in the 1980s. And the states, the emotional states, the states of well-being that we had on the course were really great. And I would go out to the redwood forest. And today the smell of the redwoods still evokes particular emotional states of well-being in me. And then, of course, we've got what the founder of integral thinking calls the ever-present origin, which is spirit. But the phrase ever-present origin is more neutral than the word spirit. Some people object to the word spirit. And as we'll see when we talk more about resources, I think of the ever-present origin as being something that can be approached through science as much as it can through spirituality. If you just think of, the Big Bang, how did that happen? That inspires me so much to imagine that process. And there's a theory that there was actually a legitimate scientific theory that perhaps it was a big bounce, that because when one asks the question, what was there before the Big Bang, scientists really can't answer it. But one of the answers that some scientists give is to say that before the Big Bang was the big bounce, that there was a contracting universe that contracted back to a singularity. And then that singularity bounced back out again with the Big Bang. And so then you can just imagine big expansion and contractions all the way back, big bounces all the way back. And if that doesn't make you the hairs stand up on the back of your neck, I don't know what would. But one of the philosophers, and I've got to try and find the quote, says, the first question we have to ask is, why is there existence? Just that thought. How did all of this get here? Where did all of this come from? It's very, very useful to think in this way, because we take so much of life for granted. But when we start to wonder at all of this, then the strange person who comes towards us down the street now seems miraculous and perhaps even sacred. I was listening to one of the well-known British, pop scientists recently, who, one of the ones who does a lot of broadcasting, and he was saying that, how could you not be really satisfied with your life? Because there are elements in your body that were created in the heart of dying stars, and that we're here in terms of cosmic time, we're here for just a moment in time. And isn't it glorious? And how can you not be satisfied with that? So that sort of great scientific vision, the vision of the specialness of our place in the universe. I do a practice like that quite a lot. I often look at people and I just say, wow, you were created in the Big Bang. You think you're 35 or 40 or 60 or whatever, but you've been here for 7.5 billion years. The matter in you has been. And just taking that approach to life can be helpful. So from a resource point of view, let's talk about let's talk about it the other way around, which is to say that I have actually, I don't like religion very much, I have to say so, but I do like spirituality a lot. And most religions have a really good mystical spiritual wing. And so, for example, if we just take Christianity, for example, Jesus Christ was about love. Lots of things that have not been to do with love have been done in the name of the religion. So, you could take Jesus as an archetype of love, and you could imagine him, you could talk to him. He could be one of the people in your circle of your community of resources. And by the way, folks, of course, you can do that with all the traditions. So I would have Padmasambhava from Tibetan or Vajrayana Buddhism, and his partner, Yeshe Sogyal, his wife, Yeshe Sogyal. And actually, I would, also have Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and then I have a dinner party in my mind and have them all around the table and chat to them around the table. Wouldn't that be fun? In the mind's eye, you can have a dinner party for anyone you want. You can get Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King, and if you want to have a bit of fun, Margaret Thatcher. You can get anybody around the table you want in your mind's eye. I think one of the tricks here is to not imagine particularly spiritual beings as being sort of far off beings floating in the sky. That can be good when you're praying to a higher power. But what about if you bring them close into the room? So I think I've said it before, people here have heard me say it, but one time I have a pretty ambivalent relationship with Christianity because I had bad experiences of it at school. But my partner's a Christian, so we talk about it quite a lot. But one time something was being said that I wasn't really happy with, and suddenly Jesus appeared next to me on the sofa. I'm not saying that I had a vision and I'm now a sort of saint or something, but I imagined, let's just say it that way. And he was sitting next to me on the sofa, and he, like a man would do to another man, two friendly men might do to each other, he dug me in the ribs with his elbow, and then he whispered in my ear, "Don't worry, I'm not a Christian." So your inner resources, it's private. Nobody can censor you. Nobody can tell you how to relate with them. Nobody can tell you that you can't, give your inner resources a hug, or they can't hug you, or, it's all in you're the king of your mind. You're the queen, you're the empress of your mind, you're the emperor of your own mind. So that's one level where, and you could have, Sufi saints from all the different traditions, Lao Tzu, Buddha, images of Mother Nature in a feminine form, female Buddhas. You could have more abstract images. My understanding is that that Judaism doesn't really like more realistic type of images, but you could sort of imagine, I don't know, a gleaming cloud, or a celestial sky with some sort of luminosity to it. And then you can talk to those higher powers, you can talk to those saints, you can talk to those beings. And then, but there's a level beyond that, which I just want to mention, which is the non-dual, which all the mystical traditions have, which is that, that God, panentheism, God is in everything. Buddha nature is awareness itself. Consciousness itself is Buddha nature. That the kingdom of heaven is within, says the Bible. That means that God's home is in me and you. So to experience ourselves as part of that one, as an expression of that one. And meditation practice, which all the traditions have, by the way, including Christianity, give us direct access to the non-dual experience. And now you can hear, I think, a helicopter flying overhead. So that's just the way, that's the Tao of life. That's the way life moves. The non-dual experience of just being, of presence. And so at the level of spirit, there are two types of resources. There are archetypal figures, saints, heads of traditions, mystics, and there's also some sensing into the ever-present origin, what it is that's in everything. What is it, that transition from nothingness, from emptiness to somethingness, that movement across that is in everything, and that we can get access to glimpses of it, for example, by sitting on a mountain and looking at the sky, the vastness of the sky or the vastness of the ocean, or through meditation practices or contemplation practices, they're called in Christianity. Each mystical tradition has a name for these sorts of practices. So we can get resources at all these different levels. And that's the meditation that we're going to do in a minute, covering all of these different levels. Any questions before, comments before we do the meditation? Milton Erickson, the person who really brought hypnosis into the 20th century, actually. But he talked about infinite possibility. And that, in fact, John Lilly, one of the first scientists who did research into LSD, said, what one believes to be true either is true or becomes true within limits to be determined experientially or experimentally. These limits are beliefs to be transcended. In the province of the mind, there are no limits. So that's Erickson's infinite possibility. And, for those of you who've done generative change or creative mind with Steve Gilligan, he's really talking a lot about, the quantum field and the field of classical science. So in classical science, the old traditional example is a billiard board table. If you hit the ball at a certain angle, at a certain velocity, against a certain part of another ball, you can predict that the other ball will go into a pocket. That's Newtonian mechanics. It's the classical science. But the quantum scientists, discover these principles that are just completely, really beyond our everyday understanding. Particles communicating with each other across space and time. All sorts of really, stuff that's really hard to get your head around. And they believe that there's infinite possibility that sort of takes form into the world that we know, but is always there and available to us. And is also, we touch into that through consciousness itself. So through the unconscious, there's the left hemisphere of the brain, which is logical and linear, and there's the right hemisphere of the brain that is poetic and aesthetic. And it's the right hemisphere of the brain that experiences the world. The left hemisphere only makes maps of it, but we've become of the world. The left hemisphere does not experience the world. It only makes maps of the world. That's according to, the latest neuroscience, The Master and the Emissary by McGilchrist, all of that sort of stuff. So the unconscious, the right hemisphere, the states of meditation that we can go into that are beyond logical linear thinking, help us go into a world of infinite possibility, where the only thing that's limiting us are our beliefs that limit us. I'm not talking about walking on water here. I'm talking about the course of your life, the possible courses of your life. Do you identify as skin and bones and a mind sitting in your head? Because it's actually not in your head, it's in your body as well. The most important part of the brain is in the heart, and well, perhaps not the most important, but equally important is the mind that's in the heart and the mind that's in the belly. Do you identify as separate from your community? Could you live without the farmers and the shopkeepers and the people who bring you food? Could you be separate from your community? Could you live without the air, the grass, the water? Are you separate from nature? Try holding your breath and see how long that lasts for. Try not drinking water or eating food. Thich Nhat Hanh, he said something like, when I write on a piece of paper, I see the clouds and the rain that fed the trees that created this paper. Where do we want to identify? And what sort of additional possibilities do we have about how we think about our lives when we start to broaden how we identify? I've been reading The Hidden Life of Trees, and there's such a beautiful description of when a tree dies. It just goes back into the humus that is feeding all the other trees. It's sort of, the feeling from the book was that the tree knows that it's doing it. And actually sometimes the trees are, if it was a mother tree, the trees around it will continue to feed the stump of an old tree to keep the stump of an old tree alive for many, many years. Whereas in our life, we ship the old people off to old people's homes, and hopefully, it's not going to be too messy. We've gone a long way from our naturalness, from the days when grandparents, parents, and children all lived in the same house. And of course, there are some benefits to that. We have more freedom in certain ways. So integral is, I am an individual self. I am a community I am many communities of mine. I'm my neighborhood. I'm my tribes. I'm my ancestors. I'm my country. I'm British, so I'm European. I'm a global citizen. I'm a human. I'm a mammal. I'm a primate. I'm a mammal. I'm alive. There are so many levels that I can identify with. So integral is bringing all of these together and not having to identify in any one of these levels, but having them all integrated with each other. That is such a powerful resource. So much just at the level, if we take community of mind, so many of the things that I struggle with and you struggle with are really nothing much to do with you. They're to do with the attitudes towards men and women and culture that were around when we were born. I was born in 1955, 10 years after the Second World War. I carry a lot of the British mail from that time that really is not personal to me. I just happen to have got the karma of carrying that. Women have the karma of carrying, the misogyny of our culture, or being at the effect of misogyny, or, disempowerment, or race will have the same thing. It's not really personal to us. Sometimes just to get that so much of our difficulty isn't really, we experience it personally, but it's not because of anything about us that we have it. It's not because I'm a bad person, or because I'm unlovable, or I'm stupid in some way for being not very as well connected with my feelings as I could be. The things, the judgments that you make about yourself, half of them are just things you inherited from the gene pool and from the culture in which you were born. So it's sort of, we just have to keep, and as we broaden those perspectives, we just say, well, I'm a man who was born in the 20th century. No wonder I'm fucked up. That's not a surprise, is it? Or I'm a woman born in the 20th century. I don't always feel as empowered as I could. Well, that's not a surprise, is it? And whatever positive and negative messages come from your culture. And then we're part of nature. And if we go to the woods and we've really spent time in the woods and we really remember our connection with the natural world, perhaps we won't feel quite so separate. The Garden of Eden is waiting for us. We've just got to take our fig leaves off, I think. Yeah. Our psychological fig leaves, let's put it that way. Or, forgive me for those of you who really hate Christianity. I'm not very keen on it myself, but I've been studying it a bit. And so the story of the prodigal son comes to mind. He went away, he left his family, which many of us in the West do. We abandon our families when we're young and go and make our own lives and become almost too independent. And anyway, the prodigal son comes back again, and the father throws him a great feast and says, I'm fully welcoming you back into the family. And the second son says, well, he's been away all these years. I've been working for you. How come he's been treated so well? And I can't remember quite what the father says, but it's the idea that nature and spirit will, as we want to connect again with nature, as we want to connect again with the spirit of being alive, we'll be welcomed back. We've become outsiders, but as soon as we turn round and want to connect again with the community of mind, human and non-human, with nature, with spirit, we'll be welcomed back with open arms. There's a great book, and I love the title. The title is How the Forest Talks. And of course, it was only when I started reading the book I realized when he said, the author, anthropologists, said forest, he meant not just the animals and the trees, but the people in the forest. The people in the forest are a part of the forest. They're a part of the ecosystem. We are, a part of nature. We are a part of the ecosystem. We've never been separate for a moment. It's just having to become really aware of it, because we're messing up nature. If you take a little, this is quite a difficult metaphor, but I'll offer it anyway. I rescued a little baby bird and I made a little nest for it. And genetically, when it wanted to poop, it would go up, jump up, stand on the side of the nest and poop outside its nest. Pretty smart move, good bit of genetic programming. Human beings are pooping in their own nests. We are making a mess of this world. But the feeling I want to inspire you with is that that feeling of the prodigal son, that if just as we turn back to nature, nature will receive us with open arms, that nature wants, spirit wants us. One of the things they say in Buddhism is that we all have, first they say we all have Buddha nature. That's intrinsic to us. But one of the things it says, it can never get tarnished. It can never get damaged. It can never get stained. Gunk may, as we are educated from babies onwards, as we grow up and we deal with the difficulty of the world and our parents and school teachers and life, we collect negative beliefs and attitudes and views and suppressed feelings and all the rest of it. But that doesn't touch or tarnish our essential nature, which is always there. Once we start to scrape away, if you like, or gently remove the gunk that's accumulated in us through psychological methods and spiritual practices, we come back to the essential nature that was never touched or hurt or tarnished in the first place. That's sort of how I think about the resources at the non-dual level that's waiting for us. This anonymous mystic wrote that, he said that, he didn't say meditation, he said the cloud of unknowing. We have to let go of all our concepts about, spirituality, religion, psychology, all of that, all of our ideas, and lean into the cloud of unknowing, lean into what the Buddhists call emptiness. No, you're not identifying with the thought, you're letting the thoughts travel through. And you lean in with just love in your heart, waiting for something to penetrate through. It's almost like penetrate through from the other side of the cloud of unknowing, to sort of to see, hear, and feel. Use the basic grounded position of seeing, hearing, and feeling. That's sort of the most real thing we have. To stay with that, to find out, is there anything, what's beneath that? What's underneath that? Where does that come from? What's the source of that? And so that, I'm just talking about one of the, the sort of, if you like, the highest or the deepest resource, which is the resource of the non-dual ever-present origin. And you might say that beyond that is integral, which is actually, let's integrate the lot. I'm not just going to go and become a hermit sitting on a mountain staring at the sky. But I'm going to be effective as an individual self. I'm going to be effective in the community of mind. I'm going to be a contributor, a gardener of nature, as well as having some sense of all that's bigger than us. Any questions or comments? I'm rabbiting on before, and then let's do the meditation. We'll take a very, very short break, I think, in a moment, but just let's take a 3-minute break. Be back at 55 minutes past the hour. See you in 3 minutes. So let's make ourselves comfortable, prepare for the meditation. If you've got a question before we start, anything that's lurking around, feel free to ask it at this point. It's a good point. Time to make yourself comfortable. Some people like to stand when they meditate or move. I always like it if some people have their cameras on, but some people like to turn their cameras off. So both is good. And of course, also if you, in the hot weather fall asleep, that's okay too. The research says that you still take in the messages. And of course, you can always listen to the audio or the video afterwards, that you will find the link to that in the newsletter that comes out on the Saturday. This week, the person who does my videos is on a course. So it may not necessarily be there by Saturday, but it'll be there soon afterwards anyway. The link on the website that the link in the newsletter takes you to. So this is just time for your unconscious to relax and just take a moment of being and peace. And one way to think about it is that I will invite you to think of certain things. And if you find yourself thinking of those things, that will be great. And if you find that you're not thinking of those things, that will be great. So I will be offering suggestions and ideas, and you will just follow what your body wants. And sometimes your body will want to respond to the suggestions that I make, and sometimes your body will want to do something else. So one of the key parts about psychological resources is to just to really learn to enjoy being present with oneself and the immense creativity that is our birthright. Do we need to teach somebody who's already a Buddha how to use their psychological resources? Well, perhaps we need to remind you, because we're Buddhas that have forgotten, or we've forgotten our sacred nature, but it's not so far away. So just to sit back and pay attention to what is arising, it's incredible. All this stuff that happens in this physical body, in this mind, that I take for granted. Half the time I'm struggling with it, half the time I'm enjoying it. Maybe I could just be amazed whatever's going on. So, you have eyesight. Notice what you see, whether it's in your optical eye or in your mind's eye. Isn't that amazing what the brain is capable of? And that if you have your eyes open, you could pick a point and look at a point, and then soften your gaze so that you've got peripheral vision. So, for example, I can see something, I won't mention what, but something in one of your pictures, not you, but something behind you. That's a sort of confusing remark. And then I'm softening my gaze so that in my peripheral vision, I can see all the frames. And then beyond that, I can see the blueness of the sky, of the windows, and I can see the walls. So I'm already in a more than conscious mind state, because I've opened from foveal vision, which is sort of linear vision, to a more somatic right hemisphere way of seeing. And then I just noticed some wind coming in the window and touching the sweat on my face. So let's pay attention to feeling. Is it warm? What's your body temperature? How does your body feel against your clothes? How does it feel against the air? How are the muscles in your body? And not trying to change anything, just saying, welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome. You're welcome just as you are. So much of our lives, we're trying to change ourselves. Sometimes we can just say, I'm not trying to change anything. I'm just welcoming what is. If I don't judge the feeling in my body and I just experience it, even if it's emotionally difficult, if I just experience the sensation, it'll probably be easier. So I'm just welcoming my body, this great beast that carries my brain around, or carries me around. I say beast in the most possibly nice way. I sometimes treat my body a bit like a workhorse. And so saying thank you to this body, thank you to this being. And just noticing, it's good to notice skin, it's good to notice muscle, different types of sensation. It's good to notice any emotion or feelings in the viscera, in the belly, in the heart, in the throat. And then coming back to sounds. Many of you know that I like to listen to sounds outside the window. I can hear the bells of an ice cream van on a London street. Listening for sounds in the house. Listening for sounds in this room. And listening to my internal dialogue, but from a distance. Observing it with a warm heart and a smile. Being interested, but not running away with thought. So paying attention to your breathing. Paying attention to your breathing. Noticing the detail of it. Allow to come to mind someone who really believes in you and supports you. Whether there's someone who's currently in your life or someone from your distant past. See their face. Hear their voice. Feel how that feels. Enjoy. It could be someone you know really well. It could be someone who you hardly knew, but once they really engage with you, like a teacher, and just said, yes, I know that you're talented. I know that you're intelligent. What a great heart you have. Or someone in a job or a shop, or a teacher, like a psychological teacher or a theological teacher. And then let other people come to your mind's eye as soon as you're ready. It doesn't always have to be the big bang, the person who just loved you so much. It's great if you get that. It can be someone who just had compassion or who quietly believed in you, respected you. It can be good to start small. I'd rather have 10 people who trust me and believe in me a bit than one person who totally loves me and thinks I'm the best thing since sliced bread. So just let people come to mind, people who support you, people who believed in you, people who are grateful to you, have been grateful to you, cared about you, enjoyed your company or support. Don't worry if you don't get many. Some people, if you feel down about yourself, it's like just that thought, oh, I'm never going to get anybody, is enough to stop you getting anybody. So just let go of anything like that. If you have one figure that comes, that's enough. So focus on what you've got. We're doing glass of water half full here. or even glass of water a quarter full. So, and perhaps there are characters from storybooks in your childhood or movies. Aragorn from Lord of the Rings is one of mine. Galadriel is too. Or a childhood storybook. Or an adult movie that you identify with. Is one of your big secrets that you were actually one of the characters in the Harry Potter movies? And then you can think about other heroes. Winston Churchill has a really bad press nowadays in relation to the British Empire. But I love the fact that when President Eisenhower came to visit him, and was it Eisenhower or was it before that? In the Second World War, Churchill was in London in the bath when he arrived. And he said, show up, show the president up. And Churchill stood up naked in the bath and put out his hand and said, welcome to England, Mr. President. You know, that's such a, I love that about him, for example. So who are the people who you admire? I admire Gandhi for saying, when they asked him, what do you think of European civilization? He said, I think it's a really good idea. You know, who are the people that you admire from around the world? The singers, the musicians, the actors, the politicians, the wise women, the wise men. The wise children, Greta Thunberg. Who else do you want in your circle of support? If the numbers get larger, you can start to have a full circle. You start with a semicircle in front of you. Then you can have a full circle. Then you have to turn around to talk to different people. Once you've filled the first circle, you can have a second circle and a third circle. I sort of imagine if we have infinite possibility, then we could have a football pitch full of supporters. So then from the community of mind, which we can continue to develop the community of mind, we can just begin to imagine nature. What is it that so inspires you and touches you and supports you? Is it a curling river or a tree or a garden or a forest? Mountains or the sky, or the way they all interact? Or particular birds? Or animals? Or just feeling a part of nature? When you've been on some holiday and had time to stop and slow down. I'm writing a book at the moment whose working title is What Does Life Want With You? But I've just had the idea for another book, Slow Living. Maybe somebody's written that book already. Moments when you've had slow living, just sitting in your garden, watching the plants grow, or returning to a nature spot in many seasons and learning about it in many seasons. Or maybe there's some archetypal image of Mother Nature herself, forest of the goddess of the forest, or the land, or the river, or the water, or an ancient tree that speaks to you. Or a time just remembering the night sky on a dark night with not too much light pollution, and seeing how bright the stars are. Perhaps seeing meteorites, having a sense of the scale of the universe, maybe dark enough to see the lighter color of the Milky Way, or moments when planets have become visible. Or just in your imagination, wondering about the scale of the cosmos. And I notice this breath. I'm breathing in the biosphere. There's a pocket of the biosphere in my lungs. Is the air in an empty glass any different to the air outside the glass? Of course, the air in our lungs will have some of the oxygen will have been taken out and carbon dioxide put back in. But essentially, the air in our lungs is in the same ocean as the air of the world. And I'm just inviting spiritual figures to come in of the sort that speaks to your soul, to your heart. To see them, perhaps to feel their presence, to feel the archetypal qualities they carry. To ask for their support. This conversation can go two ways. Very often it's great just to have the community of supporters talking to you, telling you what you need to hear, what they need you to hear. But at other times, it can be really great to ask them questions or to pray to them, to let them know your longing, to speak your longing. Sometimes I just imagine it as like a spotlight from the sky, light radiating down from a distant figure. Sometimes the figure is closer, and I can feel their light entering my body. What if you did a chakra meditation, receiving light from each of the chakras of a spiritual being who you want to be more alike? Or sometimes they just sit with me and hang out with me, talk to me, hug me. If I wake in the night, I can put my head on someone's lap if I want to, or have a cuddle. Infinite possibilities. And then beyond this level is spaciousness, is the size of the universe, is the difference between existence and what existence came out of. Most visible to me in the luminosity of consciousness. I'm aware of what I see, aware of what I hear. I'm aware of what I feel. What is it that senses what I see, what I hear, what I feel? One image that's sometimes used is that of a mirror. All of life appears in the mirror, but the mirror never changes. What is it that's in common between everything you see and everything you hear? Where do they land in your brain, in your nervous system, in your being? Where do the feelings arrive? Awareness itself is constant, luminous, can't be pinned down. It's not a thing. It's a process. And then inside awareness is the little darting mind that darts around like a monkey, paying attention to this and that. Watch in the next 10 seconds how your mind darts around paying attention to this and that. Even when I say it, it might slow down a bit, but it still doesn't stop, does it? So there's the darting around mind, and there's something behind that, awareness itself. So we start to move back from the senses, what we imagine, what we see, what we hear, what we feel, to paying attention to awareness itself. This present moment, in this present moment, in the East, they might call this the Tao, the flow of present moments, one moment to the next. In the West, some people might call it the Holy Spirit. What if your essential nature that's underneath everything else is none other than God herself? It's certainly worth exploring, isn't it? We don't have to make up our minds about this, because it's not really about the mind, it's about experience. But what happens when we lean into the experience, into awareness itself? What if we become really interested in awareness itself? What is here in this moment that's deeper than what we see, what we hear, what we feel? What is it in which the sights, sounds, and feelings arise? And just being curious, no answers are needed. I'm not a problem to be solved. I'm a mystery that's unfolding. What if we were to learn to identify at least as much with the awareness, with the field in which everything arises, as much as the preoccupations of the individual self or the worldly mind, or even ourselves as Mother Nature? What if the essential thing we paid attention to is the field in which all existence arises, out of which all existence arises? And finally, the resource of being able to include all these levels, move between these levels, call on these levels depending on the needs of the situation. The individual you that's wrapped in a community of mind, of being, that's wrapped in nature, that is nature, that is non-existence emerging into existence in every moment, forms arising. You were all of this. And you could draw on all of this. You're in the process of learning how to move between these levels and draw on all of these levels. And if we go to the very basic level of the individuals who are your community of mind, what if you, or your circle of supporters, or your circle of supporters around you, what if you spoke to them every day? What if you saw them every day? What if you made a habit of visiting with them every day? I bet you that if you visited with them every day, they would start knocking on your door and visiting with you. If you're giving into those inner relationships, giving to those inner relationships will give back. And then not only do we have the people we've met and to know, but all the people we've never met, all the great minds we've never met, Shakespeare, all the great literature, art, and music of the world. All of that is available as a resource. Dance, movement, painting, art. Every bee, every insect, every animal, every flower, every stream, every tree is available to us as a resource, an inner resource. And every archetypal form from every culture is available to us. And we, of course, we have our own favorite ones, and that's great. And what if we communicated with all of these levels every single day? And also the ever-present origin, the nothingness that is turning into somethingness every moment. How long would it take for these to come to you and remind you, knock on your door and say, in moments of difficulty, and say, hey, remember me, remember all of this? How many days would it take? How many weeks? How many months of visiting would it take for them to be like your inner bodyguard, to be your inner protectors, to be your inner tribe taking care of you? How long would it take? How many days or months would it take for them to just know your life and know when to turn up when you're about to be in high performance mode and just get in there with you? You're just about to do something important and wow, you're suddenly feeling empowered. They're doing their work. And if you want people to help you out, if you want them to do you a favor, if you want them to be there for you, one of the best things to do is to ask them. So perhaps both today and tomorrow and every day for the next few months, we take a few minutes to check in and say to our circle of support, hey, I'm with you, please be with me. Let's be a team. I want to be a team with you, community of mind. I want you to be a team with you, Mother Nature. I want to be in a team with you, all the spiritual forms and the one out of which all forms arises. I want to be a team with you. And I want to know how to bring all of this together. I want to both become more expert at this, and also to continue to be aware of the infinite possibilities of more. And just sort of yearning with one's heart, but my heart is soft and warm. So Perhaps your heart is soft and warm, yearning, saying, yes, 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 I want more. I want more connection with you. I want more relationship. I want to love you more. I want to feel supported more. I want to be more intimate with you. I want to become more and more intimate with you, all of these levels. And then just to feel I can feel the warmth, feel the gratitude. Hopefully you can feel the support coming back to you. And if there's any place in you that hurts or is emotional or, your wounded place, if it's present, let it be here. It's welcome to the party. It's welcome, it's welcome. We can have the light, we can have the love, we can have the feeling of all the supporters, and we can have the feeling of our wounded selves, which may even be saying, no, these supporters aren't really going to be here for me, or they won't love me, or this is blah, 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 blah. So yes, 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 yes. And we are all here. The supporters are all here. Even if you deny us, we're here. We're going to be here anyway. It's like that is one of the most important functions of the community of support, is to hold the places in ourselves that are wriggling and struggling. And sometimes we just need to sit with the kid in ourselves and say, yes, we get how painful it is. Yes, we get how difficult it is. It doesn't have to be one or the other, it's both. Isn't it nice to know that you have this enormous realm of resources, and it's getting bigger all the time, and there's infinite possibility as you practice. And at the same time, we also have places in us that need love, that need care, that feel disempowered or detached or disconnected or wounded. We can bring some really great feelings to support and hold the places in us that feel vulnerable without trying to change them. Yes, it's okay to feel lonely sometimes. It's okay to feel disempowered sometimes. It's okay to feel sad or grief. It's okay to feel longing. We can just be present with ourselves. That's a part of human, not just human, all existence has living and dying, growing and hurting, growing and falling apart. The whole of existence has it. And so do we. It's something bigger that can hold all of that. So when you're ready, just to stay deeply connected with yourself and also make contact, include the other people in the field, in the circle, on the screen. Just begin to gently open your eyes and feel your inner world, and also feel the field of support in which we're in. we're going to go into groups of 3, take 5 minutes per person. And you're only allowed to talk about great experiences of connection. That's the focus. What are the resources that you felt strongly? Not to talk about anything that you didn't feel strongly. So groups of 3, 5 minutes per person. I'll do the timing. Welcome back, welcome back. Great. Let's hear from you. How was that for you? Great. Miriam.
I just, when you asked me, I didn't hear you mention my name. I just wanted to say that it has been wonderful today, the time we spent with you, and lots of things.
How was the meditation for you? How was the meditation for you?
Oh, very, very good. Very, very good. I felt great and very, very positive. Very good. Thank you.
Great, good. Any other comments? Did anyone have difficulty with the meditation or anything unusual happen?
We had in our subgroup at the end a very inspirational, inspired discussion, and it's and I think also important discussion, not discussion in a not in a negative way, in very it was very inspiring and.
What was inspiring?
We talk about about connection in the group via this new technology, how to be more connected, which technologies exist, psychotechnologies,
Yeah.
So connection to the group in this with these technologies to be more connected. And then we go further. We went further on to more scientific and more
beautiful, Enrico. I'm realizing it's time. What I'd like to do is have everybody unmute and give a word about how you feel. Thank you, Enrico. How are you feeling right now? Everybody unmute and we'll just
amazing.
Amazing, great.
Uplifted.
Great.
Surprise.
Joyful.
Say that again, Marija.
Joyful.
Joyful.
refreshed.
Refreshed.
I'm feeling wonderful. Thank you very much.
Great.
Hopeful.
Hopeful. Yeah, great. Have we heard from you, Zarko?
Reassured.
Reassured, great. Paul has disappeared, so he's not here. So, I love being able to share this with you. It's so great to do this with you. And I will see you next week. I think we're doing, what is the topic for next week? Can anyone remember the topic for next week? I think it's about how unique we all are. If we take our life calling, our psychological resources, our strengths, it means that we're the only one in the world who has a unique gift to offer to the world. And so next week is about your unique gift to the world, because you're the only one with your life calling, your psychological resources, your life experience, your strength. So you have something that nobody else can give to the world. That's the topic of next week. So I hope to see you there.
Isn't it the week after next? Isn't it every 2 weeks?
It's next week, I'm pretty sure. Let me just check.
Yes, it's the 29th. Yeah.
It's the 29th. It's next week, yeah.
Okay.
It's not every 2 weeks. It's sort of slightly random, based on whether I'm in the country or not.
Okay.
So, great. Lots of love to you all. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very
much.
much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.